The teacher made us write down where you want to be in 5 years. You know, be part of a race team was one of them. And never really be a driver because I knew I was going to be a mechanic. In my mind, did I ever think it would happen? Probably not.
Was it ever something that you actually, from the early days, said, God, what, that would be a dream?
You know, it's funny because I have a picture in my office that we had went on a family vacation to Busch Gardens, and this was like 1990, so I'd have been 13 years old. Okay. My caricature was drawn with me in the Miss Budweiser boat.
Oh no.
I was like, what are the odds of that? So my parents didn't even have a boat at the time. Yeah. My first boat that I ever drove in a race was in 2005, and it was an Anheuser-Busch sponsored. Yeah, Anheuser-Busch sponsored boat in Sarasota.
Basically, that artist, if you could go back and find
yeah.
Like you like some kind of psychic?
Yeah, there's that movie where they got the Zoltar machine.
Yes. Did you watch the shootout course prep video that I recently did with Myrick Coil? Myrick answered a lot of the questions around the new shootout course, and this video actually preceded it, but we rolled the course prep video out during shootout week and are now giving you the story behind Myrick Coil. It's a fascinating story that will inspire you as Myrick went from LOTO weekend warrior to boat mechanic to one of the best powerboat race drivers on the planet. If you don't know Myrick, you will after watching this one. A living legend in the powerboat racing world. I mean, you can scoff that off all you want, but everybody I talk to in this arena says you got to talk to Myrick.
Yeah, so a lot of it is due to the shootout. I mean, me and a buddy, Jim Rainierson. My parents had a lake house from the early 90s, and we didn't venture out of the Gravois very much, but one day we did, and we ended up at the shootout. I think that was 99. We went to the shootout, and I had no idea. I mean, the boats were like they are. And at that point, went to Lake Career and Technical Center in Camden. That following week, it really got accelerated quickly. But from there, got a job at Advanced Marine, which was over on the north side and still is. Steve Wallace and Matt Patterson. That's where I got my feet wet with learning how to work on boats and deal with customers and stuff like that. And then at that point, I met Dave Scott. Dave Scott then was full-time racing for Anheuser-Busch, and I became his crew member, full-time employee to keep an eye on things, everything from support rigs to trailers to all of that. And then we built a building at the 12-mile marker called Naughty Marine. Worked on customer boats there and race boats for several years. Performance Boat Center bought Naughty Marine and got its employees and me with it, and we came over here to the 21-mile marker, and I've been here since.
Okay, we're going to digress this conversation here for a second. So what year was it you said that you ventured out of the Gravois Arm and down to the...
It would have been 99.
So
went to Shooters 21.
Shooter 21 is where it was back then. And so it's an incredible story. So let me digress and say this is Myrick Coil, who is the driver. Oftentimes when you go out to the powerboat races, you come down here to the shootout, he's the one driving multiple boats usually.
Yeah.
And currently you are the driver for MCON Monster Energy.
MCON Monster Energy, yes.
Yep. So if you're familiar with the powerboat racing world, you know who this guy is. If you're not, that's the story we're going to tell today. And so that's what's so fascinating about this is that you came down here as a tourist, somebody, just like everybody else. We just come down here on the weekends. We have friends. We have a place. You saw something. You're like, I'm going to go do that. Like literally the next week.
Yeah, literally. So through high school, installed swimming pools. My buddy's dad owned an electrical company. So in high school, I learned how to do electrical. So plumbing and electrical. And if you know a boat, it's a lot of that. I really didn't know the engine that well. So that's when Larry Whitrock, God rest his soul, just passed away last year, was my teacher. Taught me about that, the whole theory behind engines, and then went through Lake Career and Technical Center, which I owe a huge thing, that the fact that it was there for me to go, and my son just got accepted into it as an Osage Indian to in his junior year. He's going to go down there and go through that same path. But I was in the adult class and Larry Whitrock was a teacher, and it was funny because shootout was Friday or Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday I was heading home to go back to my installing swimming pools job, and I had called my mom and told her, hey, kind of interested in this boat thing. I didn't realize they were this cool, And she had gotten into the old phone book, back in the day, because when you were a transplant or when you have a lake home here, you take a phone book back to Illinois, where we're from. And she's like, hey, I just looked in the yellow pages and it says there's a technical school down there. I called them. They said that they'll meet you, but classes started that day. So Larry being a super great guy, and I think the Gail White, she was the supervisor of the whole facility. I mean, they had have everything from body shop to nursing to building a house, stuff like that. So I went there, and he said, "You need to make the decision now." And I remember it was like $5,000 and some dollars, and I didn't have that much money, but went to my bank, got a loan, and went back, told my boss that I'm moving to the Lake of the Ozarks and I'm going to tech school. And thank goodness my parents had a lake house here, a little 800 square foot cabin, and it was cold in the winters, but it was enough for me to have a place to live, during school. And from there, rest is history.
That's wild. That right there in and of itself is kind of that inspirational story that probably a lot of kids need to hear, especially nowadays, because we live in a different time now. You have kids, you have a kid, you have a son who's working here.
Yeah, I have 3 boys and a girl. My wife works at the high school now. She's the softball coach for the high school, and she's the junior high basketball coach. So yeah, all that is a cool story, and it is inspirational. I mean, if I were king, there'd be a lot of tech schools out there where people could be learning these trades and all that stuff. But
well, you could run for president. I mean, if Trump can do it, you can do it.
I don't know about that.
So you're talking about the technical school down in Camdenton, right?
Yes, correct. LCTC, which a lot of people don't even realize is there. When you pull into the high school and you go down the hill back there, you're like, man, what is this? And it's, state-of-the-art facility. And 25 years ago when I went there, I mean, it was on point. Mercury actually used to be there in the same building and everything. So yeah, I got to do that, LCTC, and I was in my early 20s, I guess. So I'd have been like 21, 22 as an adult student going there. They put me in Vocational Institute Clubs America, VICA, which I thought was corny. I was like, man, I don't want to be going to these little competitions. Here we had to go to Sedalia one time, and then I think we had to go to West Plains, and it was not something that I thought was very cool. Then, hey, you won the state. And I'm like, well, really, that's cool. Then they're like, hey, we're having this other competition where everybody, a representative for each state goes to this VICA thing, and then they have all of the booths set up, and I forget how many stands. So you have an essay, you have questionnaire, and then they send you, like, Yamaha was there, Volvo Pinto was there, Mercury was there, Westerbeek was there, Dometic was there as far as the vacuum flush heads and things like that. So as you go through these things, they have booby traps or, things to figure out. And I remember thinking, man, I did pretty good on that, I think, but then you see 30, 40 other guys doing the same thing, and you get intimidating. You're like, man, hope I got like top 5 or something, They said the 3rd place and 2nd place, and my parents had came to watch the award ceremony and all this. I'm like, oh man, I didn't even place. And then they said 1st place, Myrick Coil, and I was like, oh my gosh. So
you took it all back. You took it all back about those competitions.
Yeah, I did. And now that I say it now, I mean, it's something. I mean, at the time I was like, my weekend shot, that stuff that you think about as a kid, like if I miss one weekend on the lake or, fishing or whatever, you think like the whole year's over.
So what did that specifically lead to anything, or was it just kind of that validation that you needed?
Confidence, which everybody needs that. Knowing that I was obviously good at it, so there's the confidence again. And then with all of that coming together and going to apply for the job, you're a little bit confident. You can go in there and say, even though Steve and Matt, they knew that I had won that competition, you're still green at it. But he's like, maybe he has some potential. That was neat. Obviously confidence and the learning skill. I can still remember shorted stop diode CDM number 5 on my Mercury, my Mercury booby trap, basically. Yeah, stuff like that. So when it comes to the way your brain works, obviously the mechanical part was the way I like, because I can remember my brother being a great artist and a great musician, and I'm wanting to be that, but my brain just didn't work that way. So when it came down to it, that was probably the biggest thing, that whole VICA tech school. Like, man, been going to school for 13 years of my life, and now something finally clicks to where I know the answer. When before I'm like, oh man, I hope I get it right.
What's the capital of South Carolina?
Yeah, that's right. It's stuff that you're like, man, I don't know why. Yeah, it's not interesting, or it's just that left-right brain stuff.
That's awesome. So from there, you end up graduating from there. I guess that's what it's called.
Yeah.
And then you obviously, you've already kind of given that story. Take us through what led you to where you just finally said, I'm going to be a driver of one of these boats.
Well, I really didn't know I would. I mean, the teacher, Larry, had made us write down, which I think is a pretty cool deal. Write down where you want to be in 5 years. And the fact that you write it, it helps for some reason. Today, I guess you'd type it. You know, be part of a race team was one of them. And never really be a driver because I knew I was going to be a mechanic, but I wanted to be a mechanic on a race team. In my mind, did I ever think it would happen? Probably not.
Was it ever something that you actually, from the early days, said, God, that would be a dream?
You know, it's funny because I have a picture in my office that we had went on a family vacation to Busch Gardens, and this was like 1990, so I'd have been 13 years old. Okay. And my caricature was drawn with me in the Miss Budweiser boat.
Oh no!
I was like, what are the odds of that? So
not
obviously,
intentionally.
Yeah, not intentionally. Like out of all of these things, because it was Busch Gardens and there's guy drawing caricature, maybe I went, hey, can I be in that boat?
Yeah.
You know, so maybe somewhere in the back of my brain there was some boat racer kind of thing, but it still hangs in my office, and they're like, oh, that's cool. And I was like, yeah, that was me, 13. My parents didn't even have a boat at the time, and I chose the Miss Budweiser boat. My first boat that I ever drove in a race was in 2004 or 2005, and it was an Anheuser-Busch sponsored. Anheuser-Busch sponsored boat in Sarasota when I was, what would I have been? I've been like 27, 28. Yeah. So what are the odds of that?
Talk about drawing it into existence.
Yeah.
So basically, that artist, if you could go back and find it.
Like
you like some kind of psychic or something?
Yeah. What are there's that movie where they got the Zoltar machine.
Yes.
Big. Yeah. I was like, so anyway, that's really cool. The way it was. And obviously, family vacations were always revolved around water. My uncle was a fisherman, and we'd rent a pontoon boat. We'd do things like that when we'd go on vacation. So I understood the way boats worked, like, hey, push this forward and it goes. But never did I understand really what was going on. This cable moves that clutch dog, So until tech school, and then going to work, and then actually understanding everything that's happening inside the boat, and then getting on with Dave Scott as one of his crew members. And I remember when I went to Miami as...
Well, first of all, how did that happen? How did you get connected to Dave Scott?
I got connected to Dave Scott through Advanced Marine. So they had worked, he lived down the road at the 2 mile marker, which we're still where he lives, and he had a 36 skater, open boat at the time, that was competing at the shootout. And I actually think it's this one right here. So this was 97, so 141. It was a 36 skater. This was before me. So he was racing before I had even went to the shootout. He had a 36 skater with 900 SC Mercs, and the 900 SCs were a stock package, or probably the biggest package that Mercury made at the time. Then he went to Advanced Marine, where Matt and Steve worked on the boat. They pulled the engines out. The engines started getting more powerful by going to Sterling Performance. They ended up being approximately 1,350 horsepower side. And this was a progression over several years before Dave really started going fast. And I don't know what the speeds were.
He did 165 in 2001.
As that goes. And then over here, he did 208 in 2010. So you can see the progression over those, 14 years, 13 years. I came in the middle of it. He basically had a open 36 skater, and then he was like, okay, I'm gonna make a job, or I'm gonna start going a little harder at this. And he built a canopied 36 skater, and Budweiser was on the side of it. I don't think it was meant to be a long-term deal, but it was like the Budweiser Shootout at the time. They knew that Dave had won the Top Gun a few times, so we want our name on the side of the Top Gun. It went whatever speed it went, 180, I think. Yeah. And that's about the time he's like, well, I'm going offshore racing. So he came to me and goes, hey, I need somebody to basically keep an eye on all my assets, and you will report to me every day, and you will be part of the crew and travel around. And at that time, we were doing 16 events a year, so it was a lot. It was everything from go get your CDL, you're gonna be a truck driver, you're gonna be a boat washer, you're gonna be a boat mechanic, you're gonna be the guy who reports back when whoever I'm subbing out isn't doing what they're saying. You're gonna be my eyes and ears. So I can remember being, on...
That's a pretty important position.
Living on W, living on W and becoming Dave's right-hand man in the races. So I get to see it all, everything from invoices to basically telling people what to do. But I was low man on the totem pole first starting, and Johnny Tomlinson and his crew had been taking care of the boats. So at that time, I come in and work for X amount of years. And since I was always with the boats, I became crew chief. So now, instead of being just the low man on the totem pole and watching everybody work, and I can remember some of the first jobs that there was a guy named, can't remember his real name, but his name was Jackhammer. Everybody called him Jackhammer. He ended up going NASCAR and all this stuff, but hanging the bodies on for I forget, I think it was Hendrix, but anyway, I remember him like, hey, I need this bolt shortened, you know, and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna make this thing perfect. He ain't gonna even tell I shortened this bolt, you know. And then I remember him grabbing it, he goes, you did this? And I go, yeah. And it was something so simple like that. I'm like, he's like, okay. And he started giving me more jobs, you know, at that point. Yeah. From being the guy that's over there kind of watching, grabbing tools, to being the guy, now I'm in the engine compartment. Yeah. I really gained their confidence. Johnny Tomlinson, which he's still, in my opinion, the GOAT. He's the best offshore throttleman ever, really? You know, in my opinion. I mean, there's obviously an argument about that, but yeah, he's still doing it. I mean,
what boat's he racing in?
Right now, he is in Pothole Heroes, but he's raced everything. You sit down with Johnny, you can hear a story from the mid 80s until last weekend. Really? So yeah, so he's a machine. You get in, you think like a guy that gets older, starts maybe losing his touch. You get in there, he'll run it harder or as hard as anybody else can. So pretty cool. Yeah, so gained his trust, and at one point we built a Super Cat, so it's a 2-boat team. We got the Unlimited boat over here, which is Bacardi Silver, and then the other Bacardi Silver boat, they're both painted exactly the same. One's racing Super Cat, which is about a 140 mile an hour boat, and then the other one was a 200 mile an hour boat. When you go to those different classes, the Unlimited boat was able to be ran a little tighter because that's so much power, and it's a lot bigger boat. It was a 46 Skater at the time, and Dave got into the 42 MTI that weighed 8,500 pounds and had limited horsepower, and he didn't like it. It's very loose all over the place. At that point, I'd been testing a lot of boats because being the mechanic, I grabbed my tool bag, put it in the back seat, and then go out and run with Johnny. Johnny's like, how about Myrick race with me? And you know, you got the GOAT, which might not, he was still really good at the time. And this was 25 years ago, telling Dave, you know, like maybe Myrick will do a good job. And I remember our first race there, so we won. So yeah, because of rules of SBI versus we were racing OSS at the time, the sanctioning body deal, the only class that the Super Cat would fit in when we raced SBI was Unlimited. So we raced a Super Cat with these 800 horsepower engines, Unlimited, which there was, I think there was 12 boats in the class at the time, and you had blower motors and all this stuff to where I'm like, we're gonna get killed by these other boats, and we ended up almost lapping the field. Yeah, really? It was a big old course, and it was rough. And the difference between that is, if it were calm, they'd have probably beat us. But when the equalizer is rough water. I remember going around my pace lap with Johnny my first race, thinking, oh my gosh, how does this boat stay together? And then Johnny in our headsets going, you ready to go? And I'm like, we're not going, you know? And I'm like, then it's like next level, out of control, boat coming in on its side, and it's crazy.
You learn
yeah,
fire.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a lot of lost lives.
Yeah, it's a dangerous sport, and I'll have to admit, when we got out of that boat and the helicopter's coming over the top of us, and Johnny's standing up there with the checker flag, like, oh, you know, I'm like laying on the side of the cockpit, like, how in the hell am I going to keep doing this, you know? Because Sarasota on 4th of July, because that's when the race has been for, like, last year when we raced Sarasota was the first time in like 20 years that we hadn't raced on 4th of July week. And it's like 105 every time with 100% humidity, and it rains right before the race, and it's like serious meltdown. So got to the first race, and the rest is history.
The rest is history. So let's fast forward now to, you know, I imagine you did that for a while, and then kind of what was that progression? Like, where'd you go to where you ended up today?
Yeah, so it was funny. I had my business card said backup driver. And I didn't care that it said anything on it. Yeah. And so one of the guys, John Price, is on the team, and he always made the beep beep the backup, like talking like I'm the backup driver, reverse. But anyway, whenever there was a position that he'd filled throughout the years, I mean, we went from Bacardi Silver and we became Bud Select, and then Bud Select we went to Bud Light in 2008. I think is when the economic crash. So Anheuser-Busch pulled out of sponsorship, so then the boat became Naughty Marine, and then we went from racing 16 events a year to racing a couple, doing the shootout, and working on customers' boats. So kind of a lull in between 2011 and 14, racing all the time, but concentrated on Naughty Marine and working on our customers' boats. And then Mark and Brett were building this over here. I had my core guys of it, customers. But then Brett had came to me one time and was like, hey, we've been talking about wanting to get more catamarans because that's what I specialized in, because what I always worked on from 2001 through 2015. So I knew how to set them up. I'm not saying I was great at it, but I knew how to choose props and stuff like that. I was like, well, okay, but I'm not leaving Dave hanging with this building and, you know, this business and all that. So they said, well, how much does Dave want for it? And so they bought it. And
was
then
Dave selling?
No, he wasn't.
Everything's for sale.
Yeah, everything's for sale. Yeah. But Dave was at a point that he was, focusing on his medical software company. And I just didn't want to, he was my guy from 2002 to this. So I'd been with him for 13 years. So it was like, yeah. So at that point, Dave and them negotiated. And next thing you know, Performance Boat Center is buying Naughty Marine. And at that point, they didn't want to be spread out. So that facility got sold, and actually Bob Bull, another big boat guy, MTI guy, bought it for a storage facility for his boats. And then there was a house on the property, they tore that down. So now whenever I go by, I go, there's where it all started at the 12-mile marker. It's a white building over there, right there on the 12-mile marker. And that used to be Naughty Marine, but now it's a toy box for Bob Bull stuff. All of that, I wouldn't do it any other way. Came here, and Mark and Brett and the whole Performance Boat Center family welcomed me with open arms. And it was just these two buildings right now when we were here, and then storage building got built, another restaurant got built, just everything started building up around here. I can remember when it would be rare to see a catamaran come in the parking lot, and now it's 50-50 probably between center consoles and catamarans.
It's a parade.
Yeah, it is. I can remember when the mechanics here were pretty much, we were a tractor driver also, and so they're like, how do we get our efficiency up? I was like, well, you don't have your mechanics driving the boats. And now there's 3 full-time tractors that are constantly moving boats, which is hard to believe. And you tell people that when you go to a marina in Florida or something, like there's 3 full-time tractor guys moving boats around the facility. That's how fast and we're trying to move, whether it's getting one detailed to put up for brokerage or sales, whether it's going to paint, whether it's going to get serviced, whatever it is, whether it has a problem that the customer can't describe good enough, it's going to the water, and we're going to test it out here and we're going to figure out what's wrong with it and come back and work on it. So. Yeah. It's a busy place, and like I was telling you earlier, I mean, you can go anywhere in the world and not even come close to what you see going through our storage buildings, or just sitting on a bench by the boat ramp and watching high-end boat after high-end boat go in and out. And I've been a lot of places, a lot of cool boat yards. There's nothing close to this.
That's crazy, man. And to think that this place outside of the Midwest is still relatively unknown.
Yeah. I mean,
other than the powerboat racing world now, and then the Midwesterners. I mean, because I've come from the real estate space, and I'd be in California, I'd be on the East Coast, and they're like, I've never heard of it. And then the show happened, and they heard of it, but they looked at it from that perspective.
Yeah, and it was pretty wild. When they were thinking about doing the show, Jason Bateman actually came here on property, and he got in our Sea Ray, and they toured him around the lake. So we're all like starstruck out in the parking lot, like maybe Jason Bateman will come and talk to us, before the show had ever even hit. But
anyway. Wow, so you guys didn't even have any idea what was about to hit.
Yeah, we didn't know.
Wow.
Yeah, because they hadn't even started filming it yet, and because he was just trying to get an image of, because I think he's the producer for it. But anyway, so he was on property, and he hopped in the Sea Ray, and I actually, and always an entourage with those, especially when they're like trying to take as much in as they can for figuring out. And during the opening credits of the show, obviously you didn't see much of the lake, through the regular day-to-day, but during the opening credits, you see your Redhead and Performance Boat Center. So that was cool. So many people that I have either taken on a golf cart ride to our different facilities. It's really cool on the week because it's literally, you got the golf carts with all of the people getting hauled everywhere. Or when I take somebody into one of these buildings and they're like, man, look at all these boats. And then you can go through and you can be like, yeah, this guy does this, this guy does that. Because it's not just the boat, it's the owner. And and that's his boat too. And they're like, well, what does he do? And you're like, well, he's a farmer, or he owns a transmission company, or he builds bathroom inserts. You can just go down, or this guy makes pre-made meals, that get shipped to your house, So that story is really cool too. And to go through and just go down the line of what these people do is cool, because it's a dream. Everybody goes, well, what do they do to be able to afford these boats? And obviously I said my lines is they're not boat mechanics. So, but yeah, so they're small business owners. almost every one of them. Yeah. They've done well and they enjoy boating, and we try to take care of them as well as we can to make it fun for them to go boating and give them events through Performance Boat Center, like fun runs, outboard fun run, shootout, you know, all these runs that are usually on off weekends, trying to draw them back to give them a reason to go boating so they can use their high dollar boat more, because you don't want it to be like a high-end car to where it just sits in the building and they never drive it, but you know, that you want their boat to be used so that they enjoy it and want another one.
Another one, of course, yeah. So, you know, obviously a part of this interview is we're going to head out to the shootout course. We're going to talk about all things shootout.
Yeah.
Is there anything more that you would want to say about, you know, what's going on here, or maybe what's somebody can look forward to? What's next? Is there any insider information that somebody should be excited about?
Well, obviously the shootout week is hectic, but it's fun. And one of the things that I tell people is not only come to Lake of the Ozarks on shootout week, but come on an off week. Because instead of all the restaurants being packed, you can actually get a seat. Instead of your cell phone not working, and I know I'm on the board of the shootout and I pick up the shootout, I don't want people just to come during the shootout and then be like, yeah, it was a little too much for me. I mean, come on the weekend after, you know, Labor Day or something like that, to where you can go somewhere and like meet an actual server and talk to them, or a bartender and talk to them, instead of them just being, you know, taking tickets and stuff like that. That's one of the things that I always notice. And I used to be the guy, hey, you got to come for the shootout. And I still am that guy, but it's usually to a person that's not on their first trip. If it's your first trip, try to make it to where you can take more in. For next week, for us, obviously Street Party is huge on Wednesday. Make-A-Wish is this weekend for us here at the facility. So that's another big one. So
Wishing on a Ride,
Wishing on a Ride. So it's pretty great. Brett and Tiffany Mawson, everybody involved in that, kudos, because we have everything from side-by-sides and Jeeps, and the kids get to come through with their family and like, oh, you know, I'm really not, and they might not be into boats, and they're like, but man, I'd really like to ride that side by side. They got a little trail through the woods for them. Helicopters rides, you know. Heck, I mean, 99% of most adults haven't been on a helicopter ride, so that's cool. And then, you know, you might be riding in a 50B, you might be riding a 48 MTI, you might be riding a performance powerboat, you just never know. So Wishing on a Ride, and then obviously Street Party. And then Thursday night, huge event here to where thousands of people, we try to display as much cool hardware as we can. The actual, I think there's some sort of a tent with registration for different things going on here. I always see Connie Wehrmeyer here doing her thing. We have bands, we have food, we have bars. So that's a cool event on Thursday night. And then Friday, poker run, more events. And I forget, when's the mini shootout?
Mini shootout's this weekend.
Yeah, this weekend. So that going on. Yeah, so it's not just 1 or 2 days anymore. It's a whole week.
Yeah. So more than a week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the fact that I've been on the board and sitting through meetings for hours on end, it seems like it goes on forever. But that's the big things around here.
Well, I think there's only one thing left to do, and that's to take them out on a boat ride and actually hear about the course, because you've probably heard I say it's like 50-50. So I see this from my perspective, which is a neutral perspective on social. And you know, all the West Siders are pissed. Yeah. And everybody up here is excited. Yeah. And so it's like you can't make everybody happy, but then there's always the drama queens behind the scenes. Yeah. It's about money, blah blah blah. Which it is. It's all about
it's raising money for the charities, which is spread out through everywhere through volunteers.
Yes.
So, which a lot of people don't realize that. I mean, through the volunteers, they log their hours, and that's how each individual, whether it's Ivy Bend Rescue, whether it's Osage Beach Fire Department, it's through volunteer hours to log how many hours you get with the amount of money that is brought in, dispersed out at the big event where they give away all the checks in the wintertime.
Yeah. And the other piece of this that doesn't get talked about enough is safety. And as I have to remind people that are bitching in the comment section that, oh, they screwed us over, it's like, you forget that if it wasn't for the drivers of these boats and the boat owners, this event doesn't exist. And if their safety doesn't come first, this doesn't exist.
Yeah, and the boats have gotten faster, you know, so I try to be open-minded and see all perspectives, whether it's the west side versus, you know, over here. And I get it. I mean, I remember when it was at Shooters 21 and we're like, oh man, it's going all the way up to the 35 mile or 34 mile marker. I was like, it was so much nicer when it was at the 21. And it does, and you know, Performance Boat Center wasn't even around then, so it's not like I could be biased like I am now. And obviously I am biased but I wasn't on the choice of where it goes. For me, in my mind, I was like, man, it's way easier to be a mile or two away than to be 15 miles away. And when I talk to other businesses and to other marinas and other people that are, whether they're staying at Land's End condos, the VRBO, where they're staying at Topsider condos, wherever the VRBO is that's around there, they've all been like, man, this is gonna be so much easier. And when you talk to Water Patrol and they're like, yeah, it's in a confined area that doesn't have as many basically access for the no wake. So, and you know, remember when a few years ago when there's always somebody going to be upset. So when everybody leaves the shootout and it basically, you know.
It's chaos.
It's chaos.
And then they had to make everything no wake all the way up to like the
and then everybody's upset about that. I mean, it's literally, you would leave this cove, go to about Paradise, and it'd be no wake.
Forever.
15 miles.
It felt like forever.
15 miles going 7. Well, most boats idle at 6-7 miles an hour, so you can say it's 2-hour idle. And obviously there was ways around that by being there very early, things like that. But not everybody can do that, and that's not something that spectators have to deal with anymore. So as far as a spectator, it might be, you know, confined area, more boats. It might be one of those things like, oh man, what are we gonna do? But the fact that it's closer and it's only a mile or two away from where it originally started, I always think that's cool.
Well, good. Well, let's. I tell you what. Let's head out. How about that? Let's go show.
Sounds good.
Cool. Who's inspired to go become a boat mechanic and follow in Myrick's footsteps? If you know a young person who isn't sure what they want to do with their life, share this. It might just be the inspiration that they need. And if you didn't watch the course prep video, go check it out now. It provided a very unique perspective inside of a performance powerboat from Myrick's perspective. And remember, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, go smash that subscribe button now and don't miss out on more Lake of the Ozarks lifestyle content that will keep you close to the best and most fun lake on the planet.